So I'm gonna give some webtoon advice, some comic making advice, very basic stuff that is is probably very crucial to making a successful comic and building an audience and managing to monetize your work. And these are things that I wish I would have known earlier when I was initially creating comics, because I felt like once I started doing these things and working like this, I started being more organized and building an audience faster and actually getting better at making comics. So, the very first piece of advice I'm going to give is plan your series. If you're going to post something online, it is very important to plan things out to some degree. Even if you're making a funny gag comic, there is still some research that you have to put in, whether it's thinking about the character's design, planning that out, planning the character's personality, rules that the character is going to be written by. Like, these are things that you need to do, because when you plan things out and you have notes already pre-done, the moment that you sit down to start drawing your comic and executing your ideas, the ideas are going to flow to you a lot more easily, and you're going to have an easier time executing your work and finishing stuff and putting stuff out there. Another important thing to do before you start posting your work online is to build a backlog of comics. I feel like I did not get better at making comics until I had a backlog. And what that means is having episodes already completed and ready for release. Before you start posting comics online, or if you have a comic and an idea, one of the most solid pieces of advice I can give you is to not post your comic until you have several episodes already completed and ready to be posted. It doesn't matter how easy it is to make that comic, or how intense the episodes are and how long they are. If you are going to start posting your comic, you at least want to make sure that you have a good chunk of episodes completed to give yourself a break and to be ready to post on a consistent schedule. Because posting consistently in comics is one of the most important things. When people start recognizing your work and start recognizing you posting every other day or putting something out there for them to read, they start seeking you out and trying to see more of what you put out there, because and before you know it, you start building a huge portfolio of all this work that people really want to read. And you will prevent burnout, and you will help yourself a lot tremendously if you make sure and you hold back and you create a backlog of episodes ready to be posted before you start posting. So I'd say have 15 comics or something ready before you start posting. Maybe even more. Just make sure you have months of work already done before you start putting your work out there, because it helps you tremendously. It is a bit of a gamble because you don't know how your work is going to be received. So it is important that you do share what you have to some degree with people you trust or other readers, but it was only until I started creating a backlog for my comics that I really started building an audience, and I started doing things more consistently. I had no issue with sticking to a schedule of sitting down and completing work. Everything came a lot more easier to me just because I had that breathing room, and I always had a goal, because I always felt good after completing a comic knowing that I am adding to the stack of comics that I have ready to be posted. And before you know it, you're building your backlog and you have so much work done, and people are under this illusion that you're a machine. And all it is that you have planned things out and you have scheduled yourself to work consistently, and it really adds up, and it helps tremendously in the process. That is one of the most important pieces of advice that I can give you, and people really don't talk about it enough. And it's so simple. It really is that simple. Just build a backlog, have episodes ready before you start posting, so that you get such a weight lifted off of you. Another piece of advice is you will fail in making comics. You will make things that do not get received well. You're going to make things that don't pick up any traction. You might even make some people angry with some of your work. You are going to fail to some degree when making comics, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be able to learn and pick yourself up and, like a phoenix from the ashes, and create your own work and not let these things get to you. Because at the end of the day, you're making stories, and you want to make stories that are good. And if they're not being picked up, there's something wrong with your story, and you need to like take a step back and start thinking about maybe doing things over, doing things differently, or working on a completely new thing. That is a very important part of this whole process. Another thing was like I was working on a comic for a while, and it got to a point where it hit a ceiling, and it was no longer really getting much of a following anymore, despite how consistently I would post. So I did come to the conclusion that I needed to stop working on this comic and work on something else and put something else out there. And the other thing that I ended up working on was the thing that ended up getting picked up, and a lot of people ended up reading, and it became its own little following and stuff. And I was able to monetize that series, and then I started to realize that's, if I had stayed on my previous work, I probably would still be grinding for readers that were not going to be interested or captivated by what I was putting out. So it's very important to take a step back and rethink your work and start something new if it's not working out. That is a big part of this whole process. It's a very unforgiving world, entertainment, and you don't have to sacrifice your story, but you do have to try to make it interesting for people to want to read it. And sometimes abandoning something or letting the idea cook a little bit longer is what you need to do, and you have to be willing to do that. Another piece of advice is to put yourself out there, to not just be making one type of work out there. Building an audience now for comics is a full-time thing. You have to involve every ounce of your character in it. Like, you have to involve yourself in communities, you have to put art out there, do commissions, get involved with people, do collaborations. It's if you want people to read your comic, you have to promote yourself. You have to put yourself out there, and not just promote your work, but promote yourself as an artist. And what that means is being involved in communities and fan groups and stuff, and providing and creating content for those communities, creating art for people to enjoy and look at. And it's in turn, it's letting people know about you as an artist, letting them know what you like, and letting them relate to you to some degree, because that's a big part of this now. If you can't find a publisher to get your stuff straight up published, you're building your audience one person at a time. And one of the ways to do that is to just be involved with the internet and to put your work out there and to promote yourself as an artist by showing people what you can create and do with your work. And that is a very big part of building an audience for a comic, because if you had spent a year or two just posting fan art and getting people that have followed you for your fan art, eventually they will want to read any work you put out there. So that is another big piece of information. Just be involved with everybody, be involved with the community, and put your work out there. It's part of promoting a comic, is promoting yourself. So remember that. My last piece of advice is make a story that you enjoy making. And I know this sounds like really dumb or something like that, but sometimes I'm a comic creator. I have a lot of ideas, and sometimes I find myself working on something that I think it's going to be received a certain way, and I end up just working on it for the wrong reasons. And you have to be able to catch yourself in these moments, because if you are working on something that you do not enjoy working on, and you're working on it for the wrong reasons, you're going to get burnt out on it. So you have to find your niche, the thing that you enjoy working on that is going to keep you consistent. And that is one of the most important words, is consistency. Consistency with story, consistency with schedule, consistency with sitting down and working, because you are your own boss in this situation and you're making your hours. So you have to make sure that whatever you're making is something that you enjoy making, so that you have no problem putting in your hours to draw it out, and it's a pleasure for you. It's therapeutic. That's also one of the more important things. If your comic is no longer being therapeutic for you, it's probably going to burn you out, and it's going to be a lot harder to make and execute your ideas, because being in a good place is a very important part to like putting your ideas on paper. We all think of comics we want to make, but when it finally comes to sitting down and drawing things out and drawing your ideas, it could get really hard, and you could be sitting there for hours looking at a blank piece of paper completing nothing. And you want to make sure everything's planned out, and you got to be sure that you enjoy making this comic. It's 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 fun. It has to be fun. It's really gonna suck if it's not fun. So I'd advise working on something that you enjoy working on if you're gonna work on a comic. So yeah, these are just some simple advice for Webtoon and stuff that you can use to any benefit you can. I really just want to help you guys, or help anybody that's looking for information, because I remember when I was looking for information to look about how to create comics, it's kind of like rocky, and a lot of people don't really like talking about their processes, it seems. Anyways, thank you for listening and watching my video. Please like and subscribe. I will probably post more advice that I've learned through this process, and share anything else with any of you that are interested. So thank you for hearing me out, and I hope you learn from this and this advice helps you make your own stories, because it's really fun to tell stories, and a lot more people should tell their story. It's it's fun, and it's therapeutic, and it's important, I feel, to share these things with the world. And thank you. Bye.